Let's break it down straight from the hill to your hometown. No spin, no hype, just facts we find. AI's on the case, no truth left behind. Laws are written, deals are made. Who's got your back, who's throwing shade? We cut through the noise, decode the text, keeping it real. Congress in context, Congress in context, shining the light, breaking it down so you know what's right. Policies, votes, who's working for you? We bring the facts, the power is you.
Welcome to Congress in Context, your personalized deep dive into the Congressional Record.
Hi there.
Today, you've brought us a really interesting snapshot, a look at Capitol Hill activity from Thursday, April 17th, 2025, specifically Volume 171, Number 67.
That's right. And our job, like always, is to sort of navigate this official document, pull out the key stuff, help make sense of what happened that day in both the House and the Senate.
Exactly. We're not just reading it out. We want to be your interpreters, maybe highlight the significant laws being proposed, the messages flying back and forth.
And even those extensions of remarks, which can be surprisingly revealing sometimes, it's about getting a feel for the actual work, the day-to-day rhythm of Congress.
Okay, let's dive straight into the House of Representatives then. They kick things off at 9:30 a.m.
Yep, 9:30.
And Speaker Pro Tempore Mr. Smith of Nebraska was presiding. That's when Speaker Mike Johnson designates someone to fill in, right?
Exactly. Happens all the time. Then they had the opening prayer by Pastor Zach Randalls,
which, given it was Holy Week, had a particular resonance, I suppose.
Yeah, a moment of reflection there. After that, pretty standard stuff. Journal approved from the day before, Pledge of Allegiance.
Right, just getting the procedural wheels turning.
But even there, you see the formalities mixing with context, like the Holy Week mention. And the Speaker pro tempore thing, it's a small detail, but it points to how the leadership manages the day-to-day flow.
Good point. Okay, next up, Senate communications. The House Clerk reported a couple of messages that came over from the Senate side.
Okay, what did they say?
Well, first, H-Con Res 22 was agreed to by the Senate, no changes. That actually happened a few days before, on April 14th.
Right.
And second, S-Res 178 passed the Senate on the 15th. That one was about the death of George Foreman from Houston.
Okay. So these messages, even though they look like brief entries, they're actually pretty vital, aren't they? They show the chambers communicating. Well, a concurrent resolution, like H-Con Res 22, that usually needs agreement from both the House and Senate. Since it passed without amendment, it was probably something procedural or maybe commemorative. Pretty straightforward.
And the Senate resolution?
That's Res 178, that's the Senate expressing its own view, in this case, condolences. It shows the chambers working, even on these non-legislative but still important functions.
Gotcha. Okay, now, this next section really shows the sheer breadth of government activity, executive communications.
Right, the messages coming in to the House from the White House and agencies.
Exactly. A whole series of communications landed, and they got referred out to various committees. It's like a constant data stream between the branches.
It absolutely is. And this is where you really see Congress's oversight role in action. These committees get these reports, these notifications, and it's their job to review them.
What kind of things came through?
Well, the variety itself is telling. It really underscores how massive the federal government is.
Okay, like what? Well, we saw the Department of Defense asking for authorization for officers to wear certain insignia, brigadier general, major general, that kind of admin detail.
And that goes straight to the Armed Services Committee, right, for their review.
Yep. Then there was the Export-Import Bank's annual report for FY 2024.
Okay, Financial Services Committee would likely take a look at that one, check the numbers, see how it's performing.
Right. And then a presidential notification continuing the national emergency about Russian ships.
Ah, that's a big one. Foreign policy, clearly. Foreign Affairs Committee would get that, and maybe others too. It keeps Congress in the loop on these ongoing emergency powers.
And there was also a note about intending to name Richard Smith as acting inspector general at the Department of Education.
Oversight and Accountability Committee territory.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the checks and balances, making sure these temporary appointments are, above board. Each one triggers a different kind of scrutiny.
It seems like it. And the flow kept coming. The Justice Department sent over its FY 2024 report on FOIA Freedom of Information Act stuff.
FOIA litigation and compliance. Again, probably oversight looking at transparency there.
And then a whole slew of reports under the No Fear Act for FY 2024 from all sorts of agencies, the Fed, Homeland Security, Commerce, Justice.
Even smaller ones like the Peace Corps and the Federal Election Commission.
Yeah, quite a list. Federal Labor Relations Authority, GSA, National Archives. It goes on. These are all about preventing discrimination against federal employees, right?
Exactly. The No Fear Act is significant. It mandates accountability. Seeing all these agencies report in shows how seriously, or at least how widely, this requirement is applied. Congress uses these to spot potential problems or trends across the government.
Makes sense. We also saw a report from OPM Office of Personnel Management on the Federal Student Loan Repayment Program, though this one was for calendar year 2022.
Okay, so maybe Education and Workforce Committee gets that one, looking at how that benefit program is working for federal employees.
Probably. And the National Railroad Retirement Investment Trust sent its annual management report for FY 2024.
Right, transportation and infrastructure would likely want to see that, given its importance for railroad retirees' financial security. It's just this constant stream, isn't it? Feeding information into the committees.
Definitely allows Congress to, theoretically at least, stay informed on a huge range of issues.
And evaluate programs, see if changes are needed.
Okay, moving on from incoming messages. The House also saw some action from its own committees. Committee reports.
Ah, okay. So bills moving out of committee?
Exactly. The Committee on Natural Resources reported favorably on 3 House bills.
Which ones?
H.R. 331, that's about amending the Aquifer Recharge Flexibility Act. H.R. 1001, dealing with a Memorandum of Understanding for the Upper Colorado River Basin Fund. And H.R. 249.
Let me guess. Something local or commemorative?
You got it. Redesignating facilities at Patterson-Great Falls National Historical Park to honor Congressman Bill Pascrell, Jr. All 3 were reported and sent to the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union.
Okay, so when a committee reports a bill, what does that really mean for our listeners?
Good question. It's a key step, right?
Absolutely. It means the committee has done its work, maybe held hearings, debated it, marked it up, and they voted yes. Basically giving it a thumbs up to go to the full House for consideration.
So it's like passing the first hurdle.
Pretty much. And that referral to the Committee of the Whole, that's just a procedural thing that lets the entire House debate it, maybe offer amendments under slightly looser rules before a final vote.
And the topics here, water, regional funds, honoring a member, show the variety even within one committee's output.
For sure. A real snapshot.
Okay, and then came what seems like a really busy part of the morning in terms of new ideas. The introduction of new public bills and resolutions.
The hopper, where new legislation begins its life.
Right. A whole bunch were introduced, dropped in the hopper, covering just an incredibly wide spectrum. It's like watching seeds being planted.
That's a good way to put it. Introducing a bill is the very first formal step. Doesn't mean it'll become law, of course, but it shows a member thinks something needs addressing. And yeah, the range tells you a lot about what's on people's minds.
Let's give folks a taste of that range. Mr. Crawford introduced H.R. 2920. It deals with axle weight variance for certain commercial vehicles.
Sounds technical, but that stuff can really impact the trucking industry, logistics,
Right. Then Mr. Bacon put in H.R. 2921. This one is about medical testing for DoD firefighters, specifically to detect and prevent certain cancers.
Yeah. That's a health and safety focus for a specific group. Shows a different kind of legislative priority.
Yeah.
One very regulatory, the other more welfare focused.
Exactly. We also saw H.R. 2923 from Mr. Balderson. This one aims to nullify some interagency guidance about climate-related financial risk for big financial institutions.
Okay, that definitely sounds like it could spark some debate. Reflects that ongoing argument about climate finance and regulation, doesn't it?
Seems like it. And Mr. Barr introduced H.R. 2924. This proposes allowing the U.S. to stop issuing visas to people from countries that aren't meeting their NATO defense spending promises.
Wow, okay. That's got clear foreign policy implications. Touches on alliances, international commitments. Definitely a potentially contentious one.
Then, shifting gears, Mrs. Cheerfless McCormick introduced H.R. 2927 to increase the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit.
So, focused on economic support for families, particularly lower and middle income. That's a familiar policy area.
And on a totally different track, Mr. Feenstra's H.R. 2930 wants to ensure residents in federally assisted rental housing can lawfully possess firearms.
Bringing Second Amendment issues into the public housing context. That's another area that often sees division. So you've got tax credits versus gun rights introduced on the same day.
Shows the diversity of issues, yeah. Also saw a couple from Mr. Joyce of Ohio, H.R. 2934 and 2935, both dealing with marijuana application, federal regulation.
Right. That reflects the ongoing, state-level changes and the pressure on federal policy regarding cannabis. It keeps coming up.
Then Mr. Liu introduced H.R. 2945 to tackle homelessness and the housing crisis.
A major social issue, always drawing legislative attention. Lots of different approaches proposed there, usually.
And Mr. Moore of West Virginia put forward H.R. 2951, make Easter Monday a legal public holiday.
Okay, that one's a bit more symbolic, maybe, though it would affect federal workers, banks. Interesting. Less controversial, perhaps, but still a policy choice.
Finally, just a few more highlights from the bill introductions. Mr. Smith of New Jersey brought H.R. 2961 to reauthorize the Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000.
That's often an area with strong bipartisan support, thankfully.
Ooh.
Reauthorizing important programs like that is crucial.
Yeah. And then we had some resolutions. H.Res. 337, recognizing National Lineman Appreciation Day.
Okay. Honoring a profession.
H.Res. 338, supporting Cambodian Genocide Remembrance Day.
Commemorating a historical event? Important.
And H.Res. 339, supporting the Second Amendment.
Right. So resolutions often express the sense of the House, raise awareness, or honor groups or principles rather than making law directly. Still significant communication tools, though.
And what's really interesting, and maybe something people don't always realize, is that for every single one of these bills introduced...
They have to say the constitutional basis of it.
Exactly. The sponsor submits a statement citing the specific power in the Constitution that lets Congress make that law. Usually Article 1, Section 8, but they specify, the Commerce Clause or taxing and spending or necessary and proper.
It's a built-in check. It forces them, at least on paper, to justify why Congress has the authority to act on that specific issue. It reinforces that idea of enumerated limited powers.
It's a fundamental piece. We also saw a list in the record of additional sponsors being added to bills that were already introduced.
Which is normal, right? As support builds, members sign on. That co-sponsorship number can really matter for a bill's momentum. Shows it has legs, potentially.
Okay, so after all that introduction activity, the House actually adjourned pretty early. 9:33 a.m. until noon on Monday, April 21st.
So yeah, a short session time-wise.
Yeah.
But clearly a lot of legislative groundwork got laid in that brief window. Lots of new proposals hitting the docket.
Right. Now, turning to the Senate side, their day, at least as recorded here, was even shorter.
Oh, really? Okay.
They came in at 9 a.m. Senator Tom Cotton was acting as president pro tempore, appointed by Senator Grassley.
Okay. Standard procedure there, too.
And then they adjourned at 9:25 a.m.
25 seconds.
25 seconds. Under a previous order, adjourned until 6:45 a.m. Monday morning.
Wow. Okay, so that was almost certainly what's called a pro forma session. Basically, gavel in, gavel out.
Why did they do that?
Usually to fulfill the constitutional requirement that neither house can adjourn for more than 3 days without the other's consent, or sometimes to prevent the president from making recess appointments. It means they technically met, but no real business was planned or conducted on the floor that morning.
So they might have been busy in committees or elsewhere, just not on the Senate floor.
Exactly. Or just setting up for business later in the week. The early start time on Monday morning suggests they plan to get back to work then.
Okay, that makes sense of the super short session. Finally, let's look at the extensions of remarks.
Ah, yes, the back pages of the record, in a way, but really valuable.
Why valuable?
Because this is where members can insert statements, tributes, opinions, speeches they didn't actually give on the floor. It lets them get things on the official record, recognizing constituents, explaining votes, celebrating local events.
It's like their personal bulletin board within the record.
Sort of, yeah. It offers this great glimpse into their individual priorities, their district connections, things that might not make it into the big debates but are still important to them and their constituents. Often more personal, less formal than floor speeches, too.
Okay, let's look at some examples from this day. Honorable Mike Thompson of California honored the 100th anniversary of the South Lake Fire Protection District.
Nice, a local shout-out, recognizing community service.
But then, right alongside that, Honorable Betty McCollum of Minnesota put in a statement strongly opposing H.R. 22, the SAVE Act. She laid out her concerns about voter suppression.
See, That shows the range perfectly. A local celebration next to a strong, detailed policy argument on a controversial national bill. McCollum using the record to formally state her opposition and reasoning.
We also saw Honorable Brad Finstad of Minnesota recognizing Tim Penny's retirement from the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation.
Acknowledging a community leader's contributions. Very common, very important for local connections.
Representative Thompson was busy in this section. He also recognized the Clear Lake Environmental Research Center as a climate crisis champion for Lake County.
Highlighting local environmental work. Good example of members championing specific causes or successes in their districts.
And Honorable Lori Trahan of Massachusetts commemorated Cambodian Genocide Remembrance Day.
Using the record for solemn remembrance, keeping history alive. Also crucial.
Honorable Joyce Beatty of Ohio put in a statement opposing a proposed shutdown of the Department of Education.
Another example of weighing in on a major, politically charged national issue. Making her stance clear.
Honorable Mark Alford of Missouri recognized a constituent, Mr. Danny Wells, for heroic actions saving a child in winter weather.
Wow. Highlighting individual bravery. That's powerful stuff. Connects Congress back to everyday people and extraordinary moments.
And Representative Thompson again honoring Anthony Roberts, chairman of the Yokadehe-Winton Nation, as another climate champion.
Recognizing tribal leadership, focusing on environmental issues again, shows his priorities.
The list really does go on. Honorable Debbie Dingell marking an anniversary for Washtenaw County's Project R&D.
Local program milestone.
Honorable Eugene Simon Vindman acknowledging the Prince William County Police for a big arrest.
Recognizing law enforcement work.
Honorable Darren LaHood celebrating 100 years of WJBC radio in Central Illinois.
Local institution's anniversary. Important for community identity.
And more climate champions from Thompson. Honorable Marcy Kaptur presenting a proclamation for the National AMV's auxiliary president.
Honoring veterans groups.
Honorable Eric Burleson recognizing a retiring city administrator. Honorable James Clyburn paying tribute to a church anniversary. Honorable Michael Turner celebrating the Dayton Dragons' 25th anniversary.
Local sports team, yeah.
Honorable Joseph Morrell recognizing a university retirement. Honorable Nathaniel Moran honoring the Kilgore College Rangerettes. It's just such a wide mix.
It really is. It covers everything from environment, local heroes, anniversaries, policy stances, law enforcement, veterans. It paints such a rich picture, doesn't it?
Right.
Shows the members connecting back to their districts and their values in so many different ways, all within the official congressional record.
So wrapping it up then, that's our deep dive into this specific day, April 17th, 2025, in the Congressional Record. We saw bills being born, messages passed between chambers, reports flowing in from agencies.
And those extensions of remarks giving us that more personal, localized perspective. Even on a day with a very short Senate session and a relatively brief House session, the amount of formal activity, especially bill introductions, was significant.
You really see the groundwork being laid, don't you? From those specific trucking regulations to big debates on climate finance or NATO spending.
Absolutely. And the extensions remind us of the human element, the local connections behind the policy debates.
And as we always say, the Congressional Record itself, it's the primary source. It's unfiltered access, really. Understanding how to read it, what's in it. It's a powerful tool for staying informed.
Definitely. We hope this dive gave some useful context, maybe sparked some interest in following up on some of those bills or issues we mentioned. It helps you get past just the headlines, you know.
For sure. Engaging with these details really deepens your understanding of how things actually work, or at least how they're supposed to work.
It's about seeing the process, not just the final outcomes.
So a final thought to leave with our listeners. Looking at that sheer number and variety of bills introduced just on this one day, what does that snapshot suggest about the major challenges, the top priorities, that Congress might be wrestling with in this particular session?
Yeah, even just from that single day's introductions, you can already see the outlines of future debates, can't you? On the economy, foreign policy, social issues, the environment, it's all there in nascent form. Makes you wonder which of those seeds will actually grow.